Welcome back. We start our news bulletin from the U.S., where the Senate has acquitted President Donald Trump of both impeachment charges. One Republican Senator Mitt Romney broke ranks by voting to impeach Trump on the charge of abuse of power. This report will now tell you more.
The Republican-dominated Senate was always seen as the most likely last stop of the Democratic-led impeachment process against U.S. President Donald Trump. But Republican Senator Mitt Romney's dissenting vote and emotional speech took center stage, knocking the air out of Trump's victory lap. Romney declared Trump guilty of abusing the public's trust.
The allegations made in the articles of impeachment are very serious. As a senator juror, I swore an oath before God to exercise impartial justice. I am profoundly religious. My faith is at the heart of who I am. I take an oath before God as enormously consequential. I knew from the outset that being tasked with judging the president, the leader of my own party, would be the most difficult decision I have ever faced. I was not wrong.
Senate's Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said it was a sad day for the American nation.
This is clearly not a happy day for the nation or the Senate. The Senate turned its back on the truth, on a fair trial, on doing what the Founding Fathers would have wanted us to do. But Democrats walked out of the Senate chamber with their heads held high, because we sought the truth.
U.S. President Donald Trump called the impeachment a hoax and said he has been vindicated. He says he will focus now on his re-election campaign for a second term in the White House. The U.S. House of Representatives has promised to widen the net in its inquiry into Trump's alleged misdemeanors. Moving on, President Nicolas Maduro says President Donald Trump's policies are taking the U.S. towards a high-level conflict with Venezuela. In a televised address, Maduro also branded opposition leader Juan Guaido as a U.S. stooge who met Trump earlier in the day. Maduro said Venezuela's electorate will reject Guaido in the elections and it will be a failure of the U.S. president. U.S. officials said any harm to Juan Guaido on his return to Venezuela will have very significant consequences. Maduro said his offer of talks to Trump is not a sign of weakness.
I extended my hand to Trump several times, and he thinks that wanting to have a dialogue is a sign of weakness? No. I say to the people of the United States that Donald Trump is taking the United States towards a high-level conflict with Venezuela.
Contra Venezuela.
The daily deaths by the new coronavirus in China have yet again broken a record as the disease killed 73 people in the past 24 hours. Beijing's health ministry says the death toll from the incurable virus crossed 550 with more than 28,000 infected. Taiwan has banned all cruise ships from docking at its ports, regardless of whether they have visited Hong Kong, Macau, or mainland China. Meanwhile, 20 people tested positive on a quarantine cruise liner at a Japanese port with 3,700 passengers. Health officials are racing to develop treatments and testing methods for the virus. Researchers say making a vaccine could take years, and a premature product can make the virus stronger as it is constantly mutating.
And so you could have a second wave, much larger, much broader epidemic. So we want to be ready, and maybe that virus changes a little bit. So it'd be important for the vaccine to be available for that if it's an issue, and then secondly, for it to be able to cover some of the mutations that might occur as the virus transmits.
Indian Muslim leader Saaduddin Owaisi has warned that the BJP government may turn Shaheen Bagh into Jallianwala Bagh to remove protesters. In 1919, British Army massacred nearly 1,000 protesters at Jallianwala Bagh in the northwestern city of Amritsar. The all-women sit-in in New Delhi's Shaheen Bagh against the controversial citizenship law has now entered its 51st day. Talking to media, Owaisi said Bharatiya Janata Party government may shoot the demonstrators. Meanwhile, Islak, a small village in Maharashtra state, has become the first panchayat to pass a resolution against the law. The village council said the step has been taken as most villagers have no documents to prove their citizenship. Demonstrations and sit-ins continue in Mumbai, Kolkata, and other cities of India. The UN's nuclear watchdog says Iran has not taken further steps to violate 2015 nuclear deal since it renounced restraints last month. The Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, says Tehran is enriching uranium. Speaking in Washington, Grossi said he is monitoring the situation and prepared for every possible circumstance. In July, Iran began stockpiling more low-enriched uranium than allowed by the Nuclear Pact, the first of 5 breaches. Iran says it will reverse the violations if the US removes sanctions and European states fulfill their commitments. Iraq's Premier Designate Mohammad Alawi has met with representatives of anti-government protesters. The demonstrators are demanding the overhaul of the ruling elite and reject Alawi as a product of the ruling political class. An official said Alawi held meetings with several dozen representatives from 8 provinces. He said Alawi pledged to release Iraqis detained for demonstrating against the government. The government says the Premier Designate will compensate the families of victims who died in the violence. Meanwhile, 8 people have been killed in clashes after supporters of cleric Muqtada al-Sadr allegedly stormed an anti-government protest camp in Najaf. Over 500 people have died in anti-government protests since October last year. Yemen's government says senior leaders affiliated to Hezbollah and Iran have been killed while fighting alongside the Houthi-led forces. Information Minister Muammar al-Irani said they were killed by the Yemeni army with support from Saudi-led forces. Al-Irani claimed Yemen's army advanced in the cities of Naham, Sarwa, and Al-Jauf. He said Houthis suffered hundreds of deaths during the fighting. Al-Irani said the battles were still raging and Houthis are concealing their true losses. Yemen has been beset by violence and chaos since rebels overran much of the country, including the capital Sana'a, in 2015. Israeli forces have shot dead a 17-year-old Palestinian protesting against the U.S. Middle East peace plan in the occupied West Bank. Mohammed al-Haddad is the first Palestinian killed in the unrest since U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled the plan last month. The Palestinian Health Ministry said al-Haddad was killed by a bullet that entered his heart. It said the clashes with occupation forces took place in the Bab al-Zawiya area of Hebron. The shooting came hours after Israel struck Hamas targets in Gaza. Syrian air defenses have intercepted hostile Israeli missiles over the capital, Damascus. Syrian state media said the attack was launched over the Golan Heights and used Lebanese airspace. It said air defenses destroyed most of the missiles before they reached their targets. There are no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Last month, the Syrian army said Israeli jets attacked its main T4 airbase in Homs province, but its air defense neutralized the missiles. We are taking a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our news bulletin. The UN Security Council will meet today for an emergency session on Syria following clashes between Turkey and Syrian forces. Diplomats say the meeting, which will be open to the public, was requested by the US, France, and Britain. The UN envoy for Syria, Geir Peterson, will report on the current situation in Idlib. More than 20 people have been killed in exchanges of fire, threatening to further destabilize the region. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan warned if Damascus does not pull back, Ankara will take matters into its hands. Meanwhile, 8 humanitarian aid organizations have called for an immediate ceasefire in northwestern Syria. The 8 groups, including the Norwegian Refugee Council, Save the Children, CARE, and the International Rescue Committee, called the situation a humanitarian catastrophe. Russia has blocked a UN draft resolution on Libya because of the use of the word mercenary in the text. The resolution voices concern at the growing involvement of mercenaries in Libya. Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said Moscow wants the word mercenaries changed to foreign terrorist fighters. The diplomat said there are a few sections in the resolution that are of concern. Talking to media, Nebenzia said Moscow has decided to continue discussions with other members. The step has cast doubt on the UN Security Council's ability to vote on the resolution by the weekend. Russia had already stopped the approval process that would have allowed a vote today or tomorrow. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says Ankara is developing its own warplane. He said it is the best response to threats to end its involvement in the F-35 fighter program. Speaking in the central Karakale province, Erdogan said the aircraft will be indigenous at every stage of design and production. He said it will roll out of the hangar in 2023. Erdogan said Turkey's situation in Libya and Syria shows more attention should be paid to missile defense. The country bought the advanced Russian S-400 air defense system, which prompted the US to remove it from the F-35 program in July. In Turkey, 3 people are dead and 179 injured after a commercial airliner skids off the runway at Istanbul Sabiha Gökçen Airport. The Pegasus Airlines plane crashed into a field and broke into 3 pieces. Health Minister Fahrettin Koca said the injured have been taken to multiple hospitals. Turkey's Transportation Ministry says a rough landing because of strong winds and heavy rain caused the accident. Istanbul Governor Ali Al-Kirawo said it could have been worse.
Unfortunately, Pegasus Airlines plane couldn't hold on the runway due to poor weather conditions and skidded for around 50 to 60 meters. It fell from this area from 30 to 40 meters in height. 175 passengers, 2 babies, 4 flight attendants, and 2 pilots were on board.
4 Pakistan Army aviation pilots have been conferred with a prestigious French military award for rescuing a mountaineer. The pilots say French citizen Elizabeth Ravel, who was stuck on the world's 9th highest peak in the northern Pakistan in 2018. Rear Admiral Didier Maltere, commander of the French Joint Force in the Indian Ocean, conferred the France National Defense Bronze Medal. The Pakistan military's media wing said the ceremony took place at the Army Museum in Rawalpindi. The pilots had flown 4 Polish climbers to Nanga Parbat in order to rescue Ravel and her fellow Polish climber. The pilots were lauded by both Paris and Warsaw. 7 people have died in a Congo virus outbreak in central Mali as the world struggles to contain the spread of the new coronavirus. The spokesperson for the regional government in the central Mopti region, Yakuba Maiga, said patient 0 is a shepherd. Maiga said the first carrier of the disease contracted the virus from an ox in Samoa village in late January. According to the WHO, Congo fever is a highly contagious tick-borne viral disease which causes severe hemorrhaging. Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Sen has lauded China's efforts against the coronavirus outbreak. After meeting President Xi Jinping in Beijing, Hun Sen said Cambodia will stand firm with the Chinese government. She said China will enhance cooperation with all countries, including Cambodia, to effectively cope with the disease. Earlier, Hun Sen met with Chinese Premier Li Keqiang. Li said Hun Sen's visit at this time reflects Cambodia's friendliness towards the Chinese people. Meanwhile, China turned down Hun Sen's request to visit the epicenter of the deadly coronavirus outbreak. Many Australians are experiencing a bittersweet break from the threat of bushfires. Heavy rain has deluged many areas with a tropical cyclone forecast to hit the country's northwest over the weekend. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for southeast Queensland. Parts of New South Wales have already been inundated by flash floods from heavy rain, which is expected to continue for several more days. Meanwhile, Australian farmers survived raging bushfires in a bunker as blazes swept through Victoria.
Wasn't terrified at all. Now, whether I'm a bit silly or not, I don't know, but I never feared for my life because of the bunkers.
The American legend of the silver screen, Kirk Douglas, has died at the age of 103. He was nominated for 3 Oscars and starred in classic films such as Spartacus and Paths of Glory. His death was announced by his son and fellow actor Michael Douglas. More about the veteran actor in this report.
Kirk Douglas became a fixture in Hollywood movies over a career that spanned 6 decades. He was well known for his rugged looks and masculine roles in war movies, westerns, and Roman-era spectacles, particularly Spartacus. Born in New York, the actor rose to prominence during Hollywood's golden age of the 40s and 50s. He took his first Oscar nomination in the 1949 boxing movie Champion.
It's a very good night for me, and I'm happy that Michael could come. Und dieses Mal habe ich Berliner Weiße getrunken.
As the news of Douglas's death broke, the film industry showed its grief on social media. His fans paid tribute by decorating his Hollywood Walk of Fame star with flowers.
He was one of the last Hollywood legends of the golden era. That's it. He's the last legend. That's it. Not a superstar, a legend. Kirk Douglas was a legend.
Back in the 1980s, Douglas visited Pakistan to meet his fans here.
France says it will help Argentina to solve the country's economic emergency and restructure its debt. In a meeting in Paris, President Emmanuel Macron said he supports his Argentine counterpart Alberto Fernandez. Buenos Aires needs to restructure $100 billion in sovereign debt with creditors that include the IMF. Argentina has been through a steep recession with inflation above 50%. Macron told Fernandez, Paris stand by Buenos Aires and will rally with the IMF and other partners to help the country.
The economic situation in your country is, of course, for a subject of preoccupation and mobilization, and we have always supported the efforts of stabilization for your economy and of integration in the international financial community, and we will continue to do so.
Qatar Airways has opened negotiations to buy a nearly 50% stake in the national flag carrier Rwanda Air. At a press conference in Doha, Qatar Airways CEO Bakr Al-Baker said Rwanda offers a favorable business environment. He said Africa has a growing demand for air travel but is poorly connected. Baker said the company is looking at opportunities for investment. The Qatari official said the country will finance the expansion of Kigali Airport to increase its capacity to 10 million passengers a year. With a small fleet of 12 aircraft, Rwanda Air flies to 27 destinations across Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East.
It is a 49% stake.
Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.